Welcome to Bootstrapped Unicorns. I'm your host, Josh Pies, the chief attention getter and hippie capitalist at C47 Digital Studios. This show is an exploration of entrepreneurship because it's important to hear people's inspirational stories of where they were and where they're going and how they've gotten to where they are. But even more important is to glean all those tactical, actionable data points that we can use on our own journeys as we grow our businesses, and we can say, yes, we bootstrapped to become a unicorn. Bootstrapped Unicorns, we are back, and as promised on every previous episode, I say, I don't know who's coming next. Somebody scheduled an amazing person for me to talk to, and when you hear from Kyle today, I promise your business will be better for it because your culture matters. And we're going to get into a conversation about culture. Now, before we do that, I do want to remind you that the look of this place has changed a lot. We are, we're 75, 80% built out. With the, what do they say? Lies, and statistics. We're getting close to having the room ready. And so the look isn't quite where I want it to be, but wait till you see. This is Studio B, by the way. Studio A isn't even built out at all. We'll have that done hopefully by next week. And if you're local, I'd love for you to come in and check it out. But either way, I am so proud of what my team has been doing to build this out. And if you saw how fast this came together, you'd be like, whoa. I'm just really proud of Miller and Tony and all of the crew who comes around our core team here in Central Florida. So I wanted to say that I'm just so proud of my team. Also, I should remind you that we're sponsored by Hire VP. If you don't have a virtual professional working for you, but you've entertained bringing on new staff that doesn't have to report to your office like we have, and we do have people who are in other countries working on our behalf, and they're part of our core team. They're fully integrated. I can show you how to do that. Go to hirevp.com/unicorns. You can learn more about it. There's a discount in there as well for your first 3 months. Your business deserves to grow. And for our business, this has been one of the solutions. So now let me tell you about Kyle. Kyle McDowell is an author. He's a speaker. He is a consultant, and he has a real bead on what it means to have good culture in your business. And we're going to get into how he discovered what that even means and his new book, which is Begin with We. And if you were just look at the word we, and his website is full of it, you might think he's a urologist. He's not. He's actually solving major problems. I'm glad you're laughing there. I thought about it as I was driving in, Kyle, and I was like, if we just keep talking about we, it's going to be like a medical show. And so we got to be careful. It is the universal and royal we of the people who make your business what it is. And so Kyle, first of all, just thank you for coming on. I know every time I'm on somebody else's show, it's a leap because I might not know them very well. And so thank you for taking the leap of faith of joining us. And how the heck are you today?
Man, Josh, I'm wonderful. And let me first start off with a heartfelt thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to, I do 2 or 3, maybe even 4 podcasts a week. And I've been looking forward to this one. And my man, the studio is looking amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm going to take you up on that offer. You know, I'm just down the road from you. So it's a shame I couldn't be there today.
We're Winter Park, Florida. What town are you in Tampa?
Downtown Tampa.
Oh, you're downtown? Nice. I love downtown Tampa. What a great place. Yeah. So we're right down the I-4 corridor. And so we are ready to host you anytime.
Look forward to that. Yeah, I'll look forward to that.
All right. So Kyle, your journey in business has brought you to a certain place, a certain understanding of what it means to have culture in your business and what even culture is. And I'd love to get into your head a little bit. Like, what has this journey been? Because I know when I was growing up, I didn't expect to be a media person, a podcaster, an actor on TV. I thought I was going to be a baseball player. So I'm wondering, what did you think you were going to be, and how did you arrive at this really cool place as an author and a consultant?
Yeah, man, I'm going to date myself with my answer. But I grew up dreaming to be the next Dan Rather. I wanted to be.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I did. My undergrad is in mass communications and in broadcast journalism. And, life just takes us in different directions. And sometimes we got to ride that ride, and other times we got to stop wherever it's taking us. But in my case, I paid my way through my undergrad while I was working at a regional bank inside of a tiny little cubicle at a call center. And reality struck when I graduated that you could either follow this passion and literally take probably a 40 to 50% pay cut because that's what starting reporters were making back in those days
Yeah.
compared to what I was making at the bank. Or you can continue this climb that you've already started inside the corporate world. And fast forward 28 years, I left corporate America in 2019 to write my book. And from that tiny cubicle for that regional bank to my final stop was a journey that is one that I'm really proud of, but also one that that I'm now calling my career undergrad, and now I'm on to my PhD.
Yeah.
Because, man, that 28 years, I saw a lot of things that I was very proud of, but also, and it seemed to happen with each passing year, I began to feel more and more apathetic and more disengaged. And I lost the optimism and passion that I brought into the workforce at the ripe age of 18. And it seemed like I lost more every single year, to the point where I felt like I had to get out and do something different.
Do you know why you were losing it?
Yeah. Say again?
Do you know why you were losing that optimism and passion? Where was it draining, and how did that happen?
Man, if I'm being completely transparent with you, it was the toxicity, the duplicity, the dysfunction that I'm not proud of this, but I have to admit it. I was the one that created some of those environments. So for some context for your audience, before I left the corporate world, in my last two roles, I led north of 30,000 people. I was responsible for multi-billion, it was big operations, responsible for multi-billion-dollar P&Ls. I had offices in almost every state in the country. I learned what not to do more than I learned what to do. And in a real be careful what you wish for moment, this is back in 2016, 2017, I made the decision after I realized my career was compromising my health. It played a major role in my divorce. I knew I had to do something different. So I stepped away with really no plan. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know I can't do this any longer. It's not good for me.
Yeah.
And the be careful what you wish for moment was I told myself, I said, if I go back into the fray, I wish it is the type of environment that I could lead pretty autonomously and lead in a way that I had never led, because I wanted to see if I were to drop that blustery, bang my fist on the desk persona that I had built in the previous 20 something years, I would do it in a way that would be really inspiring and compelling to others. So, man, I got a job offer within about 10 days of leaving that last gig. And it was to lead an organization of about 14,000 people, 11 different locations, really purposeful work. It was leading the world's largest health insurance enrollment function. It was for the Affordable Care Act. And on the other side of that was 1-800-Medicare, leading the enrollment centers, the telephonic enrollment centers for 1-800-Medicare. So the leader of the organization was pretty open that this could be your transformation to lead. If this is something that you feel like you can do and you want to do, let's go. So I joined the role. I joined the organization. And about 60 days into my first, into that tenure, the first meeting I called was to bring in the top 40 or 50 leaders of the organization to kind of level set and say, here's what you can expect from me first, because here's what I will expect of you. And the night before that meeting, I knew I had to have this kind of Braveheart moment. It was in my lap. I had that day suit on still, and I was had my laptop in my lap in Lawrence, Kansas. I remember it like it was yesterday. And about 2 hours worth of PowerPoint work resulted in 10 sentences. And each of those sentences began, and still do, begin with the word we. Because I felt like this is a group that had been together. I knew they'd been together a long time. The tenure of this group was pretty significant. And I knew if I walked in there and said, here's what I was going to do, here's how I was going to save you, and here's how I was going to turn this operation around, it would have fallen on deaf ears and I'd have been DOA. So I knew I needed them, and I knew they needed me based on everything I had heard. And I'm not that creative, Josh. So now I have the 10 we's, and that's kind of the foundation of the next 8 years of my life.
So, and those 10 we's, and we're going to get really into this too, because I think, our audience here is all either entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs. People are almost ready to take that leap, and they feel like they need to learn more, but aren't going to go get an MBA. This is their podcast habit is kind of their MBA. And so these 10 points can be extremely poignant for this audience. And I want to go through that. And I'm assuming you had time to test these 10 points. How long were you with this, these 14,000 people and these 50 leaders? How much time did you get to implement we?
Yeah, that's a really, really fantastic question because I was really hesitant to push them as the manifesto for our organization because I didn't want it to be another top-down initiative. I'm sure members of your audience and you, Josh, you can probably relate as well. I know I've seen it too many times. Is most organizations have a really fancy mission statement. They've got these fancy values that they're really proud of, but not many employees in the organization can recite any of them. And I didn't want to be associated with that. I didn't want to create this kind of I didn't want to create these principles and have them be just words on a wall. So I didn't push it because I knew it. I knew if it was a hunch. I shouldn't say I knew. I had a hunch that if I were to push it, it would not be as it would not permeate the organization the way it needed to be a real factor for change. So I sat back. After I introduced them, I even told the team, I said, you can change it to 10, to 8, to go up to, I don't care. But we will have guiding principles and you're going to hold me accountable to them. And then I'm going to hold you accountable to them. I'm on the same level playing field as you are. There's no leadership gap here. And I would say real adoption and kind of gravity began maybe 6 to 8 months later. And it's so funny,
I feel like
man,
for the
because
size organization, that's really good.
Yeah. Well, so here's a hack that I think a lot of people may not understand. When you're leading an organization of that size, the way I conduct myself and those that I'm trying to influence the most are still those that are closest in my circle. Why? Because if I can get them on my side, if I can get us aligned around a common cause, like the 10 W's, these principles, they're more likely to pay it forward. And then the group underneath them is more likely to pay it forward. So whether I'm leading 15,000 or 15, those that I interact with the most are those that I'm really focused on leading. And I need them to be bought in authentically so they're comfortable. They're not just carrying a message they don't believe in. They're actually living it and carrying it because they know we're better off for it. But if you were to ask any of my directs back in those days, anytime they told me, hey, Kyle, the 10 We's are taking off, and I would see it. Like I'd venture off to one of our locations every other month. Every month I would go to a different location and I would start to see signage. I would see t-shirts popping up. I saw coffee mugs start to pop, things that I didn't commission. I didn't direct any of those. And my team would say, Kyle, it's really working. And I for many, many months, Josh, I felt like they were brown nosing the new boss. I felt like they were just kind of pandering. And it turns out when I left that organization, I took those principles with me to my next organization. And then fast forward, finally stepping away from corporate America, those same leaders that were there from day one of those principles, day one of the 10 We's, they were the ones that reached out to me and said, dude, it's time to write your book. You've got a bigger call and you need to share this more broadly now. I get chills even saying this story. They helped me name the book. They were very involved. And by the way, I should add, that organization that they were originally birthed within went on a run of unprecedented performance, quantified unprecedented performance. Their nearly every key performance indicator had reached its absolute ceiling in the following 12 to 18 months. They still have the 10 We awards. All of their performance appraisals are kind of geared and revolve around those 10 We's, the principles. So it is their manifesto, and I've been gone for 5 years. So it's stuck, and that's what I'm doing now, man, is in this PhD that I'm on now is traveling the country, espousing the value of principle-based leadership, specifically the 10 We's, and helping organizations implement them.
That is absolutely phenomenal. And obviously it's catching. I mean, you when we were not on air yet, as it were, you were telling me that, you're working with businesses as small as, maybe 10 or so employees, all the way up to whole divisions of Audi. And so people are looking at you as somebody who can bring the spirit of we, if you will, to them, because you clearly, you've locked onto something that has great value. And I've worked a lot with John Maxwell. If you're familiar with the leadership author, John Maxwell, and John, he's said more times than I can count that leaders lead from behind, and it's because they're ushering a group together and promoting others in a very we moment. And so I think you've tapped into something that is almost this like visceral core of what it means to have a leadership organization. This we is so critical. And so I'll bet you have the 10 we's completely memorized. How do you, when you're introducing it to in conversation in the first time, how do we learn what these 10 we's are?
Well, it really depends on how much time you have, because I can
Well, you
go
can have all the
on
time you
for a
want.
long time. You're too kind. Well, then let me run through them then. And I always, Josh, and I must again give this caveat to your audience. As you hear me walk through these, I'm not naive to the fact that some of them at the very beginning are so fundamental. Your audience might even say, well, no shit, Kyle. Of course that's a principle. So let me caveat that. And the second caveat is they build upon one another. So you'll see how one contributes to the next all the way up through number 10. And lastly, I must say, the value of the principles is not just it's not just in the content as I read through them and walk you through them. There is just as much power and value in the fact that we are aligning as a team. We are aligning around a series of principles. And for nerd's sake, because I'm a nerd, principle is nothing more than a foundational belief. It's something we hold to be true. So, Josh, if you get a group of people aligned around a series of fundamental beliefs, we hold these things to be true, and anything other than these or the opposite of these is not good for our team, then we're more likely to live them. So once we conspicuously state our principles and say, here's how we operate every single day, you're much better positioned and poised for success. So here we go. When I walked the team through it for the very first time, I said, guys, you should know these are the rules. These are they will govern how I will lead this team, and they will govern how I hold you accountable. Very, very simply. And I'm going to be really adamant about that, team, because I want you guys to hold me just as accountable. And I mean that sincerely. Like if you see me living and behaving in a way that's not consistent with anyone, they have. So I truly believe authenticity plus relatability equals trust. So if my team sees that I'm being authentic with them and we can relate to one another, and we certainly can't relate if I'm on some leadership pedestal. Like if we're on the level playing field, they can relate to me. I believe trust naturally follows. But you have to earn it. So the very first of the 10 we's is the most fundamental of them all. Without this one, it's a house of cards. Everything else crumbles. And we do the right thing, always. Now, it sounds very fundamental, and people would say, of course, we're going to do the right thing, and maybe there'd be some tongue-in-cheek replies. But show me an organization that has that documented anywhere, that it is the number one principle by which we operate, and I'd be surprised. I've yet to find one. Now, I go in the book, I go through the steps to try to determine what is the right thing, because you and I can disagree on what the right thing is, right? So I give people filters to walk through and help them make their decision on what's right. Now, if we're going to do the right thing, and we agree as a team, we're all going to do the right thing. In my mind, the very best way to demonstrate the right thing is to do number 2, we lead by example. And it's not a question or not, am I going to lead by example? Because you're leading by example right now. We all are. Everybody is. We lead by example every single day. Everybody's, especially in a position of authority or leadership, people are watching you. So the question to ask is, am I leading by an example that I'm proud to see replicated? My filter inside of my pea brain is, what would my mother say? I tell people, if it were broadcast on the company intranet or even the internet more broadly, would you be proud of that behavior being documented? So lead by example. And the best way for a leader of a team, in my mind, to lead by example is to make good on their commitments. And number 3 is we say what we're going to do, and then we do it, right? How many times, and I know your listeners have seen this because I lived it more often than I'd care to admit. You ask somebody for something inside of the team, but they have to go somewhere else to get it. And this whole chain and these dominoes begin to be stood up. And if one of those dominoes does not fall, there's blame to be had, and we're doing this. So in my teams, when you make a commitment to do something, you're going to do it. I look at it this way. When we make a commitment to our clients, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to come through and we're going to deliver, but we must do the same behind the curtain. It starts there. It starts taking care of one another, making sure that we make good on our promises. That's our brand. That's who we are. So if we're going to say what we're going to do and then do it, that means we got to do what? We got to take action. And number 4 is we take action.
That was my
and then
favorite
follow
one, by
on.
the way.
You
I
like
love
that one? All right.
takers. Oh yeah, I got really excited when I saw that. So last night I'm reading your website. I saw that and I'm like, yeah. And my wife was like,
man.
What? And I wasn't watching any sports. I'm sitting there reading your website and I'm yapping out loud. And I'm like, okay, I know the kids are asleep. I'm sorry.
I love that. I love hearing that. Well, look, I look at it this way. There is an organization out there that I'm going to go on a limb and bet 95% of your audience has a product from this company. And this company spends billions of dollars in using their version of take action. And it's just do it. Nike doesn't say be the best. Nike doesn't say run fast. They don't say let's go win. They say just do it. Just do something. So my follow on to we take action is being idle and making a mistake is being active and making a mistake is okay. Being idle is not. Take action and make a mistake. We're going to be there. Now, that one's never going to live and never going to work if we don't have the very next we, which is we own our mistakes. We number 5 is we own our mistakes. As a leader, you got to create an environment where people, if they see something that needs to be addressed, they're not shy about doing it because for fear of retribution that they're going to get hit over the head for the first mistake they make. That sticky situation that's gone unaddressed is unaddressed for a reason because it's gnarly. And people, in most organizations, if I raise my hand and say I want to take this on, it's not usually met with more money, and it's usually met with take this on top of everything else you're doing. So where's the incentive to voice an opportunity? There really isn't one. But if you want that inside your organization, if you loathe mediocrity the way that I do and the way that I want our teams to loathe mediocrity, you want them to point something out and say, hey, we got to go address that. I'm not sure what the answer is. I don't know who owns that, but I'm raising a flag to say this could be better than it is. Our clients deserve better, or our employees deserve better. So we're gonna own our mistakes. Now, the best way to own our mistakes is taking us to we number 6, and this is where we transition from pretty fundamental, Josh, to more like must-haves. Must-haves, like they're beyond fundamental, but they're going to be what separates us from our competition. And number 6, after we own our mistakes at 5, is we pick each other up. Every single one of us has baggage, man. Right? We're all dealing with things. Whether it's, a sick child at home or a divorce is on the horizon, or maybe I got an elderly parent we all have baggage, right? And we all need to be picked up from time to time. And I don't want us to be shy about that. If so-and-so or someone on the team is struggling, I'm going to call them and say, hey man, you seemed a little off today. Is there something I can do for you? I'm not asking for details. I just want you to know I care. I'm here for you. And there's a corollary to this one as well. It's not enough for the leader just to pick someone up when they've stumbled. We got to propel people to new heights. So if there's a member on the team who's expressed an interest in maybe new training, or maybe they even want to leave the team and go do something else because they feel like it's more appropriate for their journey, the leader's obligation is to help them get there, believe it or not. Because when you show that person you care more about them than you do about what they can do for you and the team, they actually work harder and they're more committed to the cause. So we got to pick each other up, and that needs to be at all levels, from me to the team up, and an intra team as well. Now, number 7 begins to get a little bit gnarly for some folks, and some people become a little uncomfortable, because number 7 is we measure ourselves by outcomes, not activity. And this is really a problem, especially the bigger the organization, where people, especially again in big organizations, they confuse or conflate activity with progress. And I look at it this way: I'm super happy that my Uber driver has gas in the car before they pick me up, but I'm not paying for that. I'm paying for that driver to take me from A to B. Getting gas before they pick me up is an activity. It must happen. It must happen. And that is an activity worth that person engaging, but it led to an outcome. So I always encourage my clients and anybody that I'm working with, if you cannot draw a straight line from any activity, and let's just use meetings, for example. If you're double booked all day and you've got, back-to-back meetings, maybe with a 15-minute break for lunch, scrutinize those meetings. Do those meetings directly contribute to a deliverable, or something I have been committed to deliver, something I have outright committed to deliver? If you can't draw that straight line, I think it should be scrutinized. I think you should really question, should I be in this? Is this the best use of my time? Number 8's my favorite. and that is we challenge each other. In most organizations, challenges are reserved for the boss, someone in a position of authority. I'm going to, let's raise this number, or let's increase let's find the stretch goal, whatever the terminology, the BS bingo is. That almost always comes from on high. And I've found, first of all, the math would say there's no way a leader of 14,000 people can challenge everybody. And there's really no way a leader of a dozen people can challenge everyone. The best challenges actually come from within the team to one another. And even more powerful are the challenges that come from the team to the leader. I look at it this way. An NFL roster has 53 men on the roster. There's only one head coach, but that's why they have multiple assistant coaches. They have position coaches. They have lots of people, because individually they can get deeper within those teams to learn more about what motivates them, what challenges they're facing, and how to bring the best out of them. So challenges are fuel, man. Challenges make us better.
So can we stay on challenges for a second, Kyle? Because I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Yes.
You led into the challenges with that example of the leader putting out like sales goals and a lot of I think you called it bingo, which I just love, because everybody's got their own take on the new acronym or whatever to try to motivate the troops. But right. Is that challenge going all the way down to that interpersonal, like, I care about my coworker and their individual performance. I see their potential, so I will challenge them to be the better version of themselves that I already see? Is it that? Okay.
Your listeners can't see this. Hopefully those watching can. Brother, you nailed it. That's okay. That's it. I know you're better than this, Josh. And we challenge each other, right?
Right.
That's how that conversation goes. And I will add, being really conspicuous that this is one of our core and fundamental beliefs. Again, the definition of principle. It's much easier to have those tough conversations because I can do just what I did. I can say, hey, Josh, man, meeting started at 9. You were here at 15. You were here at 15 after. And we challenge each other, right, dude? We're on the same team. Yep. We agreed to this. And that creates it creates less angst because the person on the receiving end knows, yeah, I did make that commitment to be part of this team. And I did sign up to be, to live the 10 We's. Now, I should also add, there's a caveat to we number 8. We challenge each other. Challenges must be grounded in either data and or experience. Everybody's got an opinion, and that's not super helpful at times. So, but if let's say, for example, we're about to kick off this product launch, right? We got this marketing campaign built out. We know exactly who our ideal customer profile is. We're ready to roll. Holy cat. Wait a second. Someone on the team said they just did in their previous job, they had a very similar rollout for a very similar product, and they encountered issues of X, Y, and Z. We damn well better listen to that person, because that's data and experience to say we got a problem and we got to hear them out. Now, and we may not change our course. We may continue the path that we're on, but we have to give this person the opportunity to challenge us to listen and be better. But we number 8 is hollow, and it's a recipe for anarchy without we number 9, and that is we embrace challenge. So whether it is a market force thing, whether it's a headwind, whether it's a competitive threat, whether it is, hey, this is the new stretch goal. We got to hit this. We have to embrace these challenges, because denying them is denying improvement opportunity. It's denying excellence. And when we deny excellence, we get lapped. We get lapped by the competition. So we got to embrace those challenges. And if we've made it all the way through number 9, we number 10 takes us to the icing on the cake. And I was purposeful to lead this one as number 10, because if we start with this one, I think it's a recipe for disappointment. And we number 10 is we obsess over details. So if we've committed to do the right thing, take action, pick each other up, own our mistakes all the way up, now it's time to get really, really detail oriented. On one of my teams, I was nicknamed the Shredder. And at first I was a little bummed, right? So you know where this is going. The team would send a PowerPoint or some presentation. Maybe I was to take it to our client, or maybe to the president of the division, or wherever. Maybe it was to me. And dude, Josh, if there was font misaligned or a different size or the margins were different, I'm done. I'm sending it back, because the level of care that you put into this type of activity is indicative of the level of care that you have for those you serve externally. You can't half-ass it behind the curtain and expect to be excellent outside of the curtain. It just doesn't, you can't turn it on like that. It doesn't work. So We've got to obsess over details because details matter. They matter a whole heck of a lot. And that's the 10 W's. I so appreciate you giving me the opportunity to walk through them.
Well, and they're very inspiring. And, like at my own company trajectory, there will be a point where I call you in and we start using the W's and ask for your help to start implementing that in my own company because I see the value already. And I think we got listeners who are going, okay, I get it. I like it. Is this right for my business? And I know on the surface level, it's right for every business, right? If you've got even two people in the room, we can believe in the W's and buy into them. But what is it that a leader who has, a tribe of people in their organization that they're leading right now ought to be thinking about in order to figure out whether today's the day that they start adopting the W's? And then to follow up with that, like,
a great question.
What's step one? Other than calling you, because we know you can help us lead that and implement it. But you've got this book, you've got this rubric. Who is this immediately for? How do we apply this?
Man, what a great question. And it starts with a lot of genuine self-reflection. Okay. So if I'm a leader in an organization and I'm out there listening or watching you and I have this conversation, the first thing I think you need to ask yourself is, do I have it in me? Because leading in this way is harder than most. It requires a greater investment in those around you. And I mean investment in terms of your time and most of all, how much you care. Because the worst thing that can happen if you half-heartedly try to take this route is you sit down with the team, you roll out these principles and you say, this is us, guys. This is how we're going to operate. We are a we-oriented organization. And if you don't live it every single day, every interaction of every day, your team is looking to see how genuinely you are approaching the principles. They're looking to see if this is a fad or a phase for you. Maybe you just read some book by some guy who espouses the value of these things and you think there's a place for it in your business. It doesn't run on autopilot. It requires an investment of time, energy, and care every single day. And there's an example that I'd share that highlights this for me. When I first rolled these principles out at the very first organization, there was a woman on my team who was a direct report who from day one thought I was full of it. She just did not believe that I was sincere. And she felt like it was a recipe that was BS. My favorite example of how she treated me is this. I was probably 30 days more like 60 days into the gig. And I asked her for an Excel workbook that was going to allow me to do a bit of analysis, right? I wanted to see how this contributed to that and drove this outcome. And I'm still learning the business. She sent me a screenshot of an Excel document. Not helpful at all. So I said, hey, come on, man, send me the whole workbook because I really want to dig into the formulas and learn what's happening here. So then she sent me one tab of the workbook. Now, here's the guy who's saying, we're going to challenge each other and we're going to embrace challenge. If I bang my fist on the desk, being challenged by her, she's challenging me, whether I like it or not, whether it's appropriate or not, doesn't matter. She is challenging me. I could rein in from on high and say, send me the bleeping spreadsheet or you're out of here, bang my fist on her desk. Or right. I could say, nope, sorry. Maybe I wasn't clear. I need the entire workbook because of X, Y, and Z. And these challenges from her continued for, I would say, 3 months. 3 months.
Wow.
Parenthetically, I haven't worked with her in 5 years. We still have one-on-ones every 4 to 6 weeks. She is now one of my closest and most trusted business confidants and colleagues in my entire career. Wow. I love this person. She has meant the world to me. She is the one that helped me name the book.
This is phenomenal. How do you arrive at this seismic shift?
I don't have a great answer for that one, to be honest. I really don't. Because I would say there was an overarching theme that if I want the same results that I had throughout the first 20-ish years of my career, go do the same thing, Kyle. But if you want something different, you're going to have to do something different. Yeah. And I just made the decision that I cared about this group of people and I cared about the purpose and the mission that this team was on. that I was going to put my ego aside. And that's really what it boils down to, is the leader has to squash that ego, be a little vulnerable, and allow the team to be their best, even if it removes the spotlight from you. I love that, by the way. Take it away from me and put it on my team, because when people feel valued, they add value. So they needed to feel that from me. And I learned the guy that had the role before me was pretty unceremoniously dismissed. They had seen some turnover at the position. So their skepticism of me was natural. Like, we've seen guys like you come and go, right? So I needed to come at him with a little bit of a different thing. And it is, I'll say this, Josh, it was a seismic shift for me, but an even bigger shift for me was the day I realized, Kyle, you can't live these principles just in the workplace. If you're going to be the authentic person that you take pride in telling people you are, you have to live these every single day outside of the workplace. And that's where the most profound impact for me has been. And it's silly things, man. I remember vividly, one day I was at the grocery store, unloaded my groceries, put them in the truck, and I took the cart and just slid it into the parking spot next to me. Getting back into my truck, something smacked me in the face. It was like, dude, you're the we do the right thing guy. And if someone from your office saw you leave this grocery cart in a parking spot that's not the place to leave grocery carts, you are an absolute hypocrite. You will never.
You got back out and put it in the right spot, didn't you?
You will never catch me leaving a grocery cart in anywhere other than right up against the building where they belong, because I just can't be called a hypocrite. So it's had a profound shift and impact on my personal life as well. And that's an unintended byproduct of this whole thing that I'm so proud of, because I hear it from readers now. They've implemented these principles as kind of a code of conduct for their family and relationships as well.
That's amazing. So I was browsing some of the accolades that Kyle McDowell has gotten on, the internet's a wonderful place, and people have been bragging about you and your book. And I happened to notice that a professional baseball player and a football coach, and I'm talking NFL coach, both have amazing things to say about you. Earlier, you referenced 53 men on a football team roster and in the structure there. How much does the elite professional athlete world influence you personally, and maybe some of the inspiration behind this we concept?
You are so good at this. What a great question. And the answer is
thank
a
you.
lot.
That was very kind.
Well, it's obvious. You're very good at this. The answer to the question is a lot. And here's why, man. We all have a legacy, and we all have a leadership legacy. Too often in everyday life, we reserve the word legacy for guys like Tom Brady, guys like John Maxwell, right? People that are in the spotlight. We reserve that word for them. Right. You're an OG big guy, Josh. I'm an OG big guy. The person who serves me, who poured me a coffee this morning, that's an OG big guy. If they choose to be.
Somebody else,
That's right, man. If you choose to be. So I happened to get to know the MLB fella that you mentioned, and who's become a really great friend of mine, so much so that I can ask him questions about how he mentally approaches some of the most stressful, a full count in the World Series, with probably hundreds of millions around the world watching. What's going through your brain? How do you psych yourself up even when you don't feel like today's the day, right? It's not different. And when you're an influential person inside of a Major League Baseball team, in other words, you are a de facto captain or you are an anointed captain, the team is looking to you for a leadership example. They're looking to see how you behave. So when I talk to him about how he approaches his business, I connect it very, very closely to what I do every day. Now, I don't make the money they make, and I don't have the public eye that they have. But like you just said, that barista, it can be an OG to someone else, and that's how I approach it. I am constantly both amazed and inspired by the way athletes handle pressure situations and the leadership examples they show, and I'm also almost as equally disappointed in the missed opportunities for some of those same athletes to really exhibit great leadership.
Yeah, well, phenomenal question. I was just tickled, to see that, when professional athletes, people who are at the top of the world's games, embrace a consultant that I know and an author that I know, it speaks volumes, because they do not accept anything but the best in their world.
That's right.
And so I knew there was a connection that had great value. So thank you for going down that road.
Josh, may I jump in there,
yeah,
though? Because you
yeah,
just said something that really, I think there's valuable response to that. He and I have had that exact same conversation. And I have told him multiple times, and I feel this way, like, if you're the number one janitor, I want to know you. I want to know what makes you the number one janitor, because it's not your ability. Because especially in Major League Baseball and any professional sport, like, ability is pretty much a ticket to entry. It's what you do with that ability that makes you special. So whether you're a janitor, a plumber, an electrician, I don't care. If you're the best at what you do, I need to know you. Where I'm going with this, though, is he and I have talked a lot about, like, gumption and the things that are required to be uncommon among the uncommon. And I choose to not separate that from a really fantastic athlete, exploiting his abilities to the corporate world and leading people to do something different. So and better. So we talk about this a lot, in the connection and how important that connection is. But again, it's the choice that we have to make to make that connection. Hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, it totally makes sense. Speaking of number one janitors, the last episode to release, we're recording right now, so it's not the previous episode, but literally, like, I think it was last week, we released an episode with a guy named Jeremy Morris, who went from being rock star to homeless to being the best janitor out there. He's got 53 employees in 150 locations, where they're known as the concierge level janitorial service for healthcare in Central Florida, which is the highest standard. And so I have the number one janitor to introduce to you. It's odd that you would
love that. Does he embrace that title?
I don't think he quite embraces it, because his level of humility is so outstanding. But I think he would accept that his business, not him, but his business, has achieved a level of status that his team, the we, can accept their position as number one. But he wouldn't accept it himself. Jeremy is not that guy. And actually, after meeting his number two and a couple of his team, he would rightfully attribute it to the amazing people he's got around. And they don't know they have the we attitude, but he's got to read your book and he's got to meet you, because they are living that we without maybe the rigor and structure that you've put to it. So you guys are going to be fast friends. I'm going to make that introduction. It's public. Now I have to do it. Miller, make sure that Kyle and Jeremy meet. You can just keep me honest on that, brother.
How cool. Yeah. I would love to meet him.
I love doing this.
Yeah, it's very cool. If you're the best at what you do, I need to know what makes you tick and how you became who you are.
Who are you observing that's doing this the best right now? Are you seeing evidence? We could look at Apple and say, okay, Apple's a great company and we can kind of publicly pick them apart. And a lot of people do this game. Do you have some pet favorites where you're like, oh, they're doing it right? I don't want to pick on the negatives unless there's a pop culture negative that we can not dwell too hard on. But do you have some positives where you're like, oh, those companies are my pet favorites right now?
Well, there's one that comes to mind, and I tell this story in the book, and it's Trader Joe's. In my favorite Trader Joe's story, Trader Joe's is known for a lot of things, mostly very, very positive. But there's a story that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. During the pandemic, when things like Instacart and the app world was really a necessity, right, for us to stay home. Those essential folks would bring in food. What was that title? What were they called? Essential positions workers. Or essential workers. That's right.
Yeah.
The proliferation of the at-home type stuff obviously was enormous. Trader Joe's initially caught a lot of flack for not being on services like Instacart, for not having online grocery ordering. They caught a lot of flack. But in a brilliant move, Trader Joe's went public to say, listen, for us to stand up that infrastructure, for us to plug into things like Instacart or even create our own is a multi-billion-dollar, multi-year investment and engagement. We're not going to do that, but we're going to spend money on our most important asset. And they gave raises to every employee twice during the pandemic. Yeah, twice. And they did it under, they didn't publicize this, but once they started to get this flack, they got in front of it and started to share that, which I think is beautiful, by the way. Take credit for great work and doing great things. And they did. So Trader Joe's comes to mind because they recognize, even in the face of adversity, in very, very scary times, the most important thing they can do in the asset that they have and must protect is their people. And that's what they did. It's a really, really compelling story to me.
That's outstanding. We need more shining light examples. And, Trader Joe's, which is actually just a couple doors down from us, you can see it and feel it, even the way they present the facade of their business. They care about their brand and the feeling you get from them. But to know that they're actually backing up how they operate and how they live by taking care of their workforce like that, and not succumbing to undue pressure too. I mean, not that it was undue. The pandemic was a weird time, but not falling prey to having to keep up with the Joneses, but kind of do their own thing that was right for their company and their people is really inspiring.
Yeah. I love how you just subliminally said, do the right thing. The first week, brother.
Right thing.
The first week, you got to do the right thing.
You were funny about that too, because you're right. So a couple of those things, when you read them, you go, that is so obvious to do the right thing. Right? But I love how clear you've been about so few of us say we're going to do it. And then even fewer of us make it a cultural mandate through, publicizing it and doing all of those right things. It's so funny. Out of the corner of my eye, I'm watching Miller right now. We're so new in this studio that we're finding new sound interruptions. Like sound blankets haven't shipped in. Like we don't have the sound deadening yet. And so he's over here cringing. You okay, Miller?
I have no idea what that noise is.
Their air conditioning units are not far from here. And I think the AC just went on. So we're learning some new sound interruptions. It'll all be good. We've soundproofed other things. We'll soundproof this one too. Kyle, seriously, like if you could see my eye line right now, his eyes just got like 10 times larger. I don't even think it's physically possible, but he pulled it off. It was funny over here.
Fantastic. Hey man, like we talked about earlier, right? Challenges, like the challenges that he's picking up today will make this experience better for the next guest. 100%. The next, you're going to iron these things out, man. That's what we do. We can't not acknowledge the problem. We have to address it. And that's what he's doing.
That's 100% it. And I've learned through so many years of entrepreneurship that, if you wait for everything to be perfect, you'll never act. You'll never get anything done because there is no point of perfection. So you get minimum viable product. And as long as you're proud enough that there's value being driven in minimum viable product, you launch and you iterate towards greatness, and the iterations that they never stop.
That's right. Yeah. And by the way, the cultural transformation is no different. There's no light switch. There's no on or off switch. Once we start it, we're on this journey. And I would argue once you start it, and if you don't make good and continue that momentum, you're worse off than before you started. Because you sent the message that it's a flash in the pan initiative, and that's not really who we are. It's a really bad place to be.
That's a great lesson. Actually, to bring Miller up again, sometimes we'll do things where we say commit to the bit. Like it's not funny unless you go all the way. It's not interesting unless you go all the way. And so when you're on camera, you kind of commit to the bit, and that's where the magic is. But not that culture is a bit at all. But I think the spirit of committing to the bit of starting culture and not stopping, that cultural transformation only has value if it's an actual transformation.
Amen. Well said.
Yeah,
genuine. Yep. Well said.
So let's get down to brass tacks here. Every listener right now should be on probably Amazon buying your book. Is that where we find it?
It's available essentially wherever books are sold. Amazon tends to be the easiest, but Barnes & Noble, Target, essentially everywhere books are sold, you can find it.
Can we get it through your website?
You cannot. That is I have not added any e-commerce to the website because it's so easy to go through Amazon.
It is.
Frankly, when I have to buy a bunch of books for a gig, whether I'm going to a client space or I'm shipping it before a gig, I buy them through Amazon myself.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, man.
I guess it makes sense. I mean, Amazon's going to be delivering half of our gear today too. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's so easy.
So everybody go to Amazon. Begin with We is the name of the book. Kyle McDowell is your shaman who wrote the book, who can help you understand how to be a we culture organization. And then, of course, Kyle, you're available to speak, consult in person. Our audience is very Central Florida, though we are also all over the US and the world. We have listeners in Italy now. We're seeing those numbers go up in Italy. We're honored. So I know you're portable, but for us, we Central Florida folks, Kyle will easily come over and hang out with me in the office here and chill, and then go to speak at your location here in Orlando. I think you owe it to your people to care about we more today than you did yesterday. So this is, if you care about your organization, you care about your people, I think you should care about getting to Amazon right now and buying the book. I'm better today, Kyle, for having hung out and heard this from you. I read it on your website last night to make sure I was ready to talk to you. And it was important from reading it. Now the feeling of what I understand is so much more robust. And I'm a different person today because of you. And I am grateful for this conversation.
Josh, brother, it never gets old hearing that. So I'm so grateful. And the way you frame that is exactly how I frame my life and those that I try to influence. I just want to be better today than I was yesterday. I want to be better tomorrow than I was today. And are the interactions, the people with whom I surround myself, are they doing that, or are they boat anchors? And if they're not helping me get better, they're a boat anchor. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I hope I added some value for your audience. I'll close with this, I guess. The reason I'm usually so humbled when someone makes a comment the way that you did is, when I wrote the book, I told my wife, if we sell 1,000 copies, I'll be over the moon. Like, it's going to be, I'll be so thrilled. When it became a Wall Street Journal and then USA Today bestseller, I was like, what's happening? This is really bizarre. We just passed 10,000 copies sold.
Come on, that's massive.
Yeah.
Audience, understand, most books only sell about 200 copies, and the vast majority of them are to the author so that they can give them away. To break 1,000 is benchmark, landmark stuff. To break 10,000, oh my gosh, Kyle, that's amazing.
Thank you. And I feel the same. I do. I feel absolutely the same, which it compels me, and it fuels me to continue to have conversations like this, because that means, like it or not, there is a need for this. I think the I, me, and my days are behind us, especially in leadership. If you want to be better and make your team better and get more fulfillment, maybe find that passion that you had when you first entered the workforce. We got to do something different. So I'm just incredibly humbled by the traction it's gotten. And then I'm so lucky to have conversations like this one, man. So I'm genuinely grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Same here. I consider every one of these moments that on my show, this opportunity to come and learn at the feet of giants. And I'd say some episodes I learn a little bit. Some episodes, going back to the term seismic, there's seismic activity and big shifts. And this is one of those conversations. And so I'm so grateful. Bootstrapped Unicorns, every once in a while I'll tell you to go back and listen to an episode that you've just finished to make sure that the hook sets. This is one of those episodes. The we, that I know you get the concept a little bit, is much bigger than you already have in you. So go listen again. Do buy Kyle's book. I like supporting people who are doing good work. So not only just supporting him, but also supporting yourself with the clarity of this information, I think is really important. So I want you to go do that. As I always promise you, the next episode is going to be somebody who's awesome and somebody I believe in, or we really wouldn't have them on the show at all anyhow. So we always are bringing the right people into your world, I promise. I believe in your business. I believe in your journey. I hope you believe in it even more than I do. And I tell you right now, my belief is massive that you can be a success. And it's learning from great guests like Kyle that are your opportunity to up level today. You remember those 1 degree changes. If we talk about, being a marksman who's shooting something really far away, a 1 degree shift can put you either on or off the target. You need to be on the target. Take these 1 degree shifts and get better every day. My passion for your future is so strong. I hope you share in that. Until next episode, just go and dwell on these great things. We're going to go grow together. Thanks for being here with Bootstrapped Unicorns. Make sure you also join us in our Facebook group. That's where entrepreneurs are really iron sharpening iron, right in there. We'll see you on the next episode.